Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Jacobs, and I wanted to do a video on something that, I found really helpful in the healing process. And healing is the process of the spiritual awakening of restoring us to our beautiful, authentic self. It basically is getting rid of all the negativity from hurt so we could be back to our beautiful, authentic self, the self that we were meant to be, not the self that stemmed from hurt, the ego self. And with the ego self, we perpetuate our own negativity with our negative thoughts and our negative, ineffective coping skills, and that causes low self-esteem in us to feel bad about ourselves, and we go through life that way. And in my case, I ended up with depression, anxiety, and bipolar, for most of my adult life. And it wasn't until I started really, taking myself on and saying, hey, I have one life to live and I want to be happy. I was struggling with relationships. I had, very thick walls, and it was keeping me from love. And my highest good, was like, wait a second, but I do want to experience love, even though I'm not, and it really motivated me to work on myself. And what the process was really getting out of my unhealed pain, pain from my childhood, pain from punishment, the negativity in my mind, the negativity in my actions wasn't serving me and was creating upset, unhappiness, not feeling good about myself, affecting relationships, affecting work, affecting the quality of my life. And, I kind of thought to myself, like, well, first of all, I became very aware of my negativity. I was in a lot of pain. Most people don't get to the level of pain that I was at. And you know what they say? They say that when you get to a certain level of pain, you have an awakening. And I think that's exactly what happened in my case. I was in such a bad place, and my thoughts were so negative, and my anger was so bad that I was like, oh my God, I gotta change my thoughts and I gotta change my anger. You, like really, that was a very eye-opening experience, because when we live in our negativity, we live unconscious to it. You know, and I'll tell you that it took some pretty traumatic events for me to have my eyes open, that I needed to make positive change to myself for my own happiness and my own well-being. And I focused on making positive change, getting rid of my anger, not learning to manage it, not reducing it, getting rid of it. I didn't want it. It was causing destruction in my life. And you know what I discovered when I got rid of my anger? Inner peace. I said, oh my God, I never experienced this kind of peace before. It's amazing, you know? And then it's like everything else had to go because I needed to get rid of my negative thoughts. I got rid of negative thoughts by getting rid of my anger, but worry, fear, insecurity, guilt, shame, jealousy, they were all creating negative thoughts too. I was carrying a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, and perpetuating it because it became an ingrained behavior and a coping skill. Beating myself up, that had to go. That's generating negative thoughts. The inner critic generates negative thoughts. It all generates negative thoughts. And, when we have the negative thoughts, we generate negative coping skills. How does anger help me in a situation? It's not solution oriented, doesn't make things better. It just creates upset for me and for other people. It hurts me and other people. And it's reactionary, it's involuntary. I wasn't taught to treat people with anger. It's ineffective, and we don't need it as a coping skill. So basically, to work on my anger, I had to work on my negative thoughts because negative thoughts fuel the anger. So if somebody, says, "You're a jerk," Debbie, that would make me angry. That would make me reactionary. That would make me, want to get in a fight with them, because the stimulus is, "You're a jerk, Debbie." And then all these thoughts that start, flood my mind about that stimulus. They all fuel my anger. All these thoughts are saying, did that person just invalidate you? Did they just, say that you're a jerk? And did they just put you down and building me up so I can get in a fight with that person? But that's my way of thinking, and they're negative thoughts, so of course they don't serve me. So I had to start learning how to intercept these thoughts. So wait a second, don't fuel my anger. I don't want to fuel my anger because I don't want to get in a fight and I don't want to be angry. And it doesn't matter that this person just called me a jerk. What matters is my happiness and me staying positive. So I said, how can I change my thoughts so I can handle the situation without anger? And it is a process of retraining the mind how to think positively. And what I would do is I would try not to react on the anger. And then, after, like, I would think about, how could I handle that situation so that I don't get angry? And what I would do is I would just absorb the anger. I'd let it like kind of, go off inside of me and not come out, But and that helped me to kind of learn how to manage the visceral reaction to anger, feeling it in my body, And then also I became more aware of my body, and when my body would get, the triggers would go off that I'm getting angry, I'd start to diffuse it. We need to learn how to diffuse our anger, not let it, explode. And so basically, but that's just an example. It doesn't matter what somebody else does. It does to an extent, but as much as possible, if we can change our own reaction to the stimulus, somebody didn't invite me to a party. And I thought, you know what? The old me would have been upset, taken it personal, felt that they didn't like me, got upset. Maybe I would have said something to them. Maybe I would have been passive aggressive to them, create a negative result. But I don't want to create negative results because negative results don't serve me. And they don't serve, and they don't help with relationships, So I said, how can I change the thought process to create a positive outcome against the stimulus? This is really is a neutral event. And you know what? I decided that it was more important for me to maintain my own happiness than to get offended and get upset over not being invited. Because if my option is to not be upset versus be upset, I'm going to go with not be upset, And basically, she does, I kind of rationalized it. She doesn't have to invite me to the party. Doesn't mean that she doesn't like me. And, I made, like, no big deal about it. And guess what? It helped our relationship. I let it go. Who cares? I did like, acknowledge it. And it did momentarily, like, kind of, ding me. But, it's not worth creating hurt over it, getting in a fight, being upset, being unhappy. Who cares? Who cares is a coping skill too. Sometimes you just gotta let it go. It's not worth it. It's not worth creating upset for ourselves. Creating upset for ourselves is a negative outcome. Creating no upset for ourselves is a positive outcome. So you really have to go through your all of your experiences and say, hey, how can I create no upset versus upset? And coming from someone who was living with depression, anxiety, and bipolar, I was living in upset. I was constantly upset. And you know what it was? It wasn't me. It was my negative thinking and my ineffective coping skills. You know, anxiety, fear, like thinking too much what people think, putting my validation, in other people's hands. That's why I was invalidated. We need to validate ourselves, you know? And we don't validate ourselves when we put ourselves down. Validating ourselves is creating a positive outcome. Invalidating ourselves is creating a negative outcome and low self esteem. So we really got to start thinking like how can we think differently about the situation so we don't perpetuate the same outcomes, the same negativity. And let me tell you something, it takes the creation of a whole new set of coping skills, a whole new set of coping skills, because our coping skills are embedded with negativity, worry, annoyance, being bothered, being frustrated, being overwhelmed, being stubborn, being angry, being guilty, being anxious, shame, jealousy, doubt, insecurity. They're all anger, obviously, being offended, the list goes on. And let me tell you something, in the process of healing, we got to change all those negative outcomes, being embarrassed, being rejected, being disrespected, being disappointed, being miserable. All of them have to change, being a failure. All negative outcomes that we create. You got to replace all those negative outcomes with positive outcomes. And guess what happens when you replace them with positive outcomes? You feel good about yourself, and your happiness increases. Win-win. And let me tell you something. It was through the healing process that I learned that we needed to create positive outcomes, not negative outcomes. And kids need to be taught positive outcomes, not negative outcomes, because depression, anxiety, and bipolar is a negative outcome. I didn't know how to create a positive outcome. I had to learn, and I learned in my healing, 40 years too late. And now I'm trying to just, share this information to help other people avoid the path of mental illness or get off the path of mental illness, get out of it completely. It's possible. It's not easy. It is much easier to change thoughts and behaviors in children than it is in adults. Adults are already in the ego self. Children are not in the ego self, but they're on the path to the ego self because the adults are in their ego self, and the adults are teaching their kids what they know. And what they know is negative thoughts, low self esteem, and negative, ineffective coping skills that just have to get, uninstalled to learn positive, effective coping skills and positive thinking so they can have healthy self esteem. So, all right, I just wanted to put some words here to encourage people. Really start looking at your actions, start looking at your outcomes, start focusing on yourself and saying, what can I do differently to increase my own happiness? You don't have to take a vacation or get a new job or move to a fun city. You just have to stop putting yourself down, getting angry, operating in fear, creating worry, creating insecurity, all your flaws. Your flaws create your unhappiness. Get rid of them and you'll be happy and free. Free of your negative thoughts and mental illness and free for life, the person you were meant to be. So, okay, my name is Debbie Jacobs, and I hope you have a good day. Take care. Bye bye.